Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into something incredibly thought-provoking. The evolving battle for justice in our digital world. We're going to look at how a historical struggle for freedom, fought in, actual analog cells, is echoing in the cyberspace of today.
And doing it through a really unlikely lens, the Uruguayan National Anthem.
Exactly.
What's fascinating here is how this specific experience of one individual, Alberto Daniel Hill, becomes almost a paradigm for understanding these complex modern challenges.
Right.
We'll be tracing a bridge from past fights against oppression to current dilemmas of digital justice, guided by the very verses of a national anthem. It's quite something.
So our mission today is to discover how traditional concepts, sovereignty, liberty, law, are being redefined, really, in an era of mass surveillance, opaque algorithms, and the constant exposure of our personal data.
You'll hear surprising facts and connect some historical dots you might not expect.
Definitely. So to really get into this, let's start with a foundational idea, maybe a bit of a thought experiment. Imagine a conversation between a political prisoner from, say, 1970s or 80s Uruguay, stuck in a physical cell, and Alberto Daniel Hill, who faced a kind of digital imprisonment today.
Right, the contrast.
Would they even recognize each other's struggle? Both faced a sort of policy of annihilation of the spirit, right? The traditional prisoner battled psychological warfare, torture even, within actual walls.
I think they absolutely would recognize it, because that core goal, annihilation to the spirit, breaking the individual, persists. The traditional prisoner aimed for a moral very high against that constant hostility.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, the modern political prisoner, or maybe just a dissenter, they face similar goals from powerful entities.
Exactly. Instead of, physical torture, maybe we see tactics like reputation destruction online or judicial persecution just for pointing out flaws in the system.
Or just the weight of constant mass surveillance.
Precisely. The goal remains the same. Neutralizing the dissenter, draining their spirit. The tools are just newer.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The cell itself has evolved. It's not just concrete and steel anymore, is it?
Not at all. Today's prison can be built with data barriers, with secret algorithms running in the background, and frankly, with legal systems that just don't get the technology. Technologically illiterate, you could say.
That contrast is stark.
Yeah.
Imagine the traditional prisoner dealing with sensory deprivation versus the digital prisoner facing this forced overexposure of their personal data.
Right. Or social isolation driven by online smear campaigns, manipulated narratives.
And just that chilling effect knowing you might be watched all the time. It's a different kind of wall.
A very potent one. And this raises an important question. If the prison has changed, so too has the battleground for freedom.
It moves from the prison yard. Where?
Into cyberspace, definitely.
Oh.
Into server rooms, and critically, into courtrooms, where technical knowledge becomes this double-edged sword. It's a weapon for defense, obviously, if you can explain the tech. But, ironically, it can also be twisted into incriminating evidence if the system doesn't understand what it's looking at.
Which brings us directly to Alberto Daniel Hill. He's really a central figure in this new era of resistance.
Absolutely. His background, highly respected cybersecurity expert, Uruguay and internationally. For over 2 decades.
Specializing in digital forensics, ethical hacking.
Yes, and with a very clear philosophy. Find vulnerabilities, report them responsibly to help fix them, never for compensation.
Yeah.
He saw it as irresponsible not to report flaws someone else could exploit maliciously.
And the irony, the deep irony, is that this act, intended purely to protect,
became the very cornerstone of the accusation against him. It's quite startling.
Tell us about the incident itself.
Well, back in 2014, Hill found a serious security vulnerability on a medical provider's website. Standard practice for him. He ethically reported it to the institution itself and also to SUTUI, that's Uruguay's National Computer Security Incident Response Team, just trying to prevent it from being used maliciously. That was his only goal.
What's fascinating here is that this act, intended to protect, later became the very cornerstone of his accusation. How did that happen?
Years later, a completely unrelated person used the exact same vulnerability, which, crucially, hadn't been fixed. Used it for a Bitcoin extortion attempt. So when the authorities investigated the extortion...
They found the extortion.
They found the actual extorter, yes. Yeah. And they found Alberto Daniel Hill's original ethical report in the logs. It left a digital trail, naturally.
And the system couldn't tell the difference.
Apparently not. The judicial system, lacking that deep technical understanding, essentially equated his responsible disclosure with the later criminal extortion, a fundamental, devastating misunderstanding.
He called it the engranaje de la injusticia, the machinery of injustice.
He did, and the impact was immediate and severe. He was arrested, subjected to what he described as an unjust processing, just riddled with irregularities, illegalities, and ridiculous verdicts.
And his tools, his knowledge.
His cybersecurity tools were misinterpreted as criminal instruments. His technical knowledge, the very thing that made him an asset for security, became proof of his supposed guilt in their eyes. It's backwards.
She spent 8 months in pretrial detention.
Observing, as he put it, how justice seemed to depend more on economic power than truth. A really harsh lesson.
So what does this all mean? He was eventually cleared, right?
Yes, the case was finally closed in early 2022, and Hill was fully exonerated. But he didn't just walk away.
No, he wrote a book.
Operation Bitcoins. Log into Hell. Documenting the whole ordeal, the systemic failures. He transformed that personal trauma into activism.
Becoming a defender of the universal right to knowledge, criticizing Uruguay's unprepared judicial system.
And warning that his story is a reminder of the dangers of a judicial system that has not caught up with 21st century technology. A warning for everyone, really.
This raises an important question, then, about this gap.
Exactly. Hill's case throws this dangerous technological justice gap into sharp relief. It's similar to the digital divide, but in the legal sphere.
Creating inequality before the law.
Absolutely. When judges, prosecutors, maybe even defense lawyers can't distinguish ethical hacking from criminal activity or just don't understand digital evidence, well, the system becomes incompetent to deliver actual justice.
And it ends up punishing the wrong people.
Disproportionately punishing those very people at the technological forefront, the ones trying to make things more secure. It turns protectors into scapegoats.
Let's unpack this fascinating connection now. The Uruguayan National Anthem, written in the 19th century. How does it connect?
It's more than just a patriotic song. Some call it a manifesto of combat. And its verses resonate incredibly powerfully with these 21st century digital struggles we're talking about.
Okay, let's take the first line. Orientats, la patria o la tumba. Uruguayans, the homeland or the tomb. Historically, that's about independence versus colonial rule, right?
Yes. Clear choice. National independence or colonial domination. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, today, you could read it as being about digital sovereignty.
Really?
A nation controlling its own data, its digital infrastructure, its laws around tech, versus what you might call data colonization.
Where big foreign tech companies or powerful states dictate our digital lives through surveillance, data extraction.
Exactly. The choice is still there between self-determination and a kind of digital subjugation. Homeland or tomb, digitally speaking.
Then there's Libertad Orientals. Liberty, Uruguayans. The classic cry for freedom.
Historically, freedom of expression and to tyranny. How does that echo now?
Well, it echoes directly in the fight for online expression. It's not just about explicit government censorship anymore, though that still happens.
Right, it's more subtle sometimes.
It's algorithmic censorship, corporate censorship. Platforms deciding which voices get heard and which get suppressed, often with zero transparency.
And the chilling effect we mentioned, auto-censorship. Knowing you could be monitored makes you think twice about what you say, what you search for. That's a loss of liberty, too.
Let's move to de las leyes, el numen juremos. Yeah. Let's swear by the numen, the spirit of laws, calling for rule of law, equality.
Yes, ensuring equality, patriotism, and union. But in the digital age, who writes the laws? That gets complicated.
You mean like code is law?
That's part of it. The design decisions programmers make, the algorithms they build, even the terms of service we all click accept on without reading. Those function like laws in the digital space.
And the promise of equality.
That's where it gets really tricky. Algorithmic discrimination is a huge issue. AI trained on biased historical data
just learns and repeats those biases?
Precisely. It can perpetuate unfairness in everything from loan applications and job screening to even predicting crime risk, creating new ways to exclude people based on old prejudices. So much for equality.
And the final line we'll look at. Si tiranos de bruto el puñal. If tyrants, Brutus's dagger. A historical call to tyrannicide. Wow. How does that translate?
It's a powerful metaphor, obviously not literal violence today. The digital Brutus's dagger is the arsenal of digital resistance.
Like what?
Things like end-to-end encryption to protect privacy, open source software that's transparent, decentralized networks that aren't controlled by one entity.
Data-driven investigative journalism exposing wrongdoing.
Yes. And ethical hacktivism, like Alberto Daniel Hill's actions, exposing vulnerabilities not to harm, but to force fixes and strengthen collective security. These are our modern tools for defense, for holding power accountable.
This raises an important question, though. Alberto Daniel Hill's case, you said, isn't isolated.
Not at all. It's really a symptom of deeper systemic tensions, especially visible in Uruguay and across Latin America more broadly.
Yeah.
We're seeing maybe 3 major new battlefields where digital justice is being fought.
Okay, let's unpack the first one.
Yeah.
State surveillance,
Yeah.
specifically in Uruguay.
Right. Uruguay has significantly expanded its tech surveillance, citing public safety as the reason.
So what does this mean for you living there or visiting? We're talking about nearly 9,000 automated facial recognition cameras, RFA cameras across the country.
And a facial identification database created in 2020. This allows for real-time identification of people in public spaces. It's pervasive.
Groups like Amnesty International are raising alarms.
They warn it could worsen racial discrimination and definitely curb rights to peaceful protest and just basic privacy if you know you're being identified everywhere.
It changes behavior.
Yeah.
And then there's cyber patrolling.
Yeah, police proactively monitoring social media. Critics argue this isn't just, old school policing moving online. It often feels like warrantless surveillance, potentially violating human rights standards.
Okay, Battlefield 2. Algorithmic discrimination in Latin America.
Yeah.
This feels more subtle.
It is, but potentially just as dangerous. AI systems learn from the data they're trained on.
And if that data reflects existing biases,
The AI learns and amplifies those biases. Socioeconomic, racial, gender prejudices. Latin America has deep historical inequalities, making the risk here particularly acute.
so for you, this could mean an algorithm unfairly denies you a loan, filters you out of a job application, affects your healthcare access.
Or even predicts your likelihood of committing a crime based on biased data. Think about that documented case in the U.S., an African-American man wrongly arrested because the facial recognition software was mainly trained on white faces. A chilling warning for everyone, everywhere.
It really is. So what does this all mean? Facing these big challenges, surveillance, bias is their pushback.
Absolutely. Against these challenges, a vibrant network of resistance has emerged. This connects back to that sublime enthusiasm the anthem talks about.
How so?
In Latin America, you have social movements, NGOs, various collectives. They're not just talking, they're actively promoting policies for democratic control over tech and data.
Like MediaActivismo.ui in Uruguay.
Exactly. Bringing together groups focused on human rights, feminism, free culture, and they use open digital tools to organize and advocate.
And regionally.
Organizations like Derechos Digitales, TEDx, academic networks like LA Vits, they're doing critical research, yes, but they're also advocating for rights-focused AI rules, training citizens on digital safety. They're translating anger into organized action.
But this highlights a kind of contradiction, doesn't it?
A huge one. States push digital citizenship for economic progress, which sounds great.
But at the same time.
They implement surveillance systems that fundamentally undermine what citizenship should mean. Privacy, autonomy, freedom of expression.
So digital activism isn't some outside force.
No, it's a vital internal response to that paradox. It's trying to make sure digital citizenship actually means rights and liberties, not just a glossy cover for more control.
So thinking back to our imaginary conversation, the analog prisoner and the digital one. At the end of it, they'd recognize that same spirit, wouldn't they?
I truly believe so. The tools of the oppressor change. Maybe electroshock becomes doxing, a physical cell becomes a platform ban, a doctored file becomes a biased algorithm.
But the goal is chillingly consistent. Silence dissent, annul the individual, destroy challenges to power.
But the resistance, even as its methods have to adapt, it's part of that same historical continuum, the fight for dignity, for truth. It's fundamentally the same fight.
The Uruguayan National Anthem's final verse feels relevant here. It is the vow the soul pronounces, in which heroically we shall fulfill.
That's not just a historical footnote. It feels like a perpetual oath, right? Something each generation has to renew against the specific tyrants of its time.
And heroically fulfilling that vow today means what?
It means doing the hard work. Auditing algorithms for bias, defending strong encryption, protecting whistleblowers, people like Edward Snowden who expose overreach, building decentralized tech.
And having the courage, like Alberto Daniel Hill, to point out systemic flaws even when it costs you personally.
Exactly. Doing it for a safer, more just society for everyone. That's the heroism needed now.
So what does this all mean for you listening? Alberto Daniel Hill's story isn't just about Uruguay or cybersecurity. It's a universal, urgent warning. Our greatest vulnerability isn't necessarily technical, is it? It feels more civic and legal.
That's a crucial point. If we don't close these technological justice gaps through serious, continuous training for judges, lawyers, lawmakers,
If we don't establish strong, clear legal frameworks for AI and surveillance,
and if we don't actively, collectively claim our digital rights,
then the dream of a digital homeland, this idea of a global space for free knowledge, democratic expression, real human connection,
could very quickly sour into its opposite.
Yeah.
A digital tomb,
How?
a global panopticon, total control, enforced conformity.
The choice, just like it was 2 centuries ago when the anthem was written, it's still ours to make.